Briefly, let's talk about something that I know will benefit a lot of people. In this age where a lot of activities are going on social media, we hear people talk about defamation, and it's now becoming very difficult for people to express themselves, even though the Constitution has granted that freedom to citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, people are afraid to talk these days in the public because of being slammed with the lawsuit of defamation. But I want to talk about defamation briefly today before I go out. I've taken some time to actually look at the law regulating defamation. And here in Nigeria, we have the Criminal Code Act that regulates what? Defamation. Okay, now let us look at how what our law is actually talking about this defamation. Hmm? We have the Criminal Code that talks about defamatory matter. So, what is defamatory matter? A defamatory matter is that statement that you will say, or that electronic that statement or that writing that you will write or say something that will expose another person to hatred, that will make another person to suffer injury in his profession or in his own trade. You have said something, it has now lowered that person in the eyes of others in the society. That is what a defamatory matter under our own Nigerian law. It could be spoken words, it could be audible sound, legibly made, written. It could even be any sign that when people look at that sign, they will know that this thing is talking about this person. You could say it, you could do it directly or indirectly. But so long as it is able to expose another person to hatred, to scorn, make that person to be lowered in the estimation of other people, make that person to suffer in his profession, make that person to suffer in his business or trade, that is a defamatory matter under our law. And the criminal code has made sufficient explanation under section 373 of the criminal code. So whether the person that you refer to in that your statement is dead or alive, it is immaterial. An action can still be brought against you under Nigerian law. It is immaterial if the person concerned is dead or alive. At any point at all, an action can be instituted against you. And you don't need to do what? To seek the consent of the Attorney General in order to, the General of the Federation, in order to bring such an action. So for somebody who is considering instituting an action for defamatory matters, you must ask yourself certain questions. Is there intent? What is the intent behind the making of that statement or the writing of that publication? You have published it. It is directed to somebody. That person or a third party heard it, and that person actually suffered an injury. These are questions you must ask yourself. Who said it? Because it's in considering who said it that you will now know whether you qualify to bring an action of defamation against that person, because our law has made provision for privileges. There are people who can make defamatory matters and you cannot bring an action against them, because there are people who enjoy absolute privilege. Absolute privilege. There are also people whose privileges are what? Conditional upon the happening of a particular thing, or because they belong to a particular class of profession or person. Whatever they say, it is qualified. And so you cannot bring an action against such a person. Another question or another thing that you also have to consider is what the intent behind it. Was it innocently published? Was it innocently said? Was it innocently written? And that is why the law also makes a kind of protection for those who sell defamatory matters, innocently selling them without actually knowing that such things are contained in such materials. The law also makes reservation for those in periodicals like newspapers, like journals, when it comes to the knowledge of who the editorial board, the owners of such a place. So these are things that you also must consider. But you must also look at the fact that is this thing actually a fact, even though it is defamatory. It is not just enough to say you have defamed me. That thing you are complaining of, is that thing actually a fact? Because if it's a fact, you cannot bring an action against the person. You will lose. You will fail. You will. So you must ask yourself, is this thing actually true? Even though it is defamatory. You must ask yourself that question too. And then you look at the intent, because intention will also play a very vital role in a defamation proceedings. Why? Because where there is no intent to defraud somebody, the sentence is kind of reduced and it's just a misdemeanor under our law. But it will not become a felony when you are publishing that defamatory matter in order to extort, to defraud somebody. Then it will now be what considered as a felony. And when it falls under this category of offense, it means that you are liable to what 7 years imprisonment. That is the position of this our law. The law is very explicit when it comes to what defamatory matter under our law. The intent must be there. When you look at section 376, you will see that it is just what a misdemeanor or 1 year in prison. But if you now know that that thing is false, it is 2 years old. You know it is false, and now you have published it. That person has now suffered that injury. 2 years imprisonment. That is the position of this law. So I have told you the things that will constitute ingredients when bringing a defamatory matter. Now, our own law says absolute privilege or conditional privilege, right? Then when you look at the law of England, their own Defamation Act of 1962, they have their own, they extended their own to broadcasting. Okay, broadcasting, things you say in broadcast. Now they went further to what, because we have the libel and then we'll have the word slander. Slander is when it is in written form, while libel is when it is slander is when it is spoken, while libel is when it is what in written form. Okay, it can be like in their own, there's this slander of title. Then under the slander of title, you now look at said words. Words that can cause damage, okay, to a person. They have unintentional defamation. They have defenses. These same defenses also exist under our own law. We have justification. That's what I was talking about. If it is true, we have justification, we have fair comment. And when you look at our own Nigerian law, you will find provisions relating to where a person can actually make a fair comment, and it will be a defense under our law when an action is brought against you. So you have right to comment on the activities of government. It is free. It is not defamatory. You can comment on the activities of the government. how a person is running the person's business. Information submitted in a petition to a president is qualified privilege. Okay? So you cannot also bring an action against that person. Information submitted in an inquiry that's been set up to look into a matter, even if it turns out to be defamatory, it is also permitted under our law. So these are things that you must look at. Now, I promise to always bring you premium legal tips. So when I learn, you learn too. So you're learning with me, you're on a journey with me. Thank you for being part of this journey. This is Xavier Law Essence, where we give you premium legal tips to help you make informed decision, live informed life, and discover the very best version of yourself. We will see you again. Have a nice day. Bye.